Few housekeeping items. Again, type your email in the chat box. If you haven't done so already as you're coming in, use the chat box to ask questions. At the end of the presentation, we'll review those questions. Turn on your video and camera if you can. And most importantly, make sure you mute your microphone during the presentation. Our agenda for today, we are going to review school meal administrative reminders. We're also going to talk about COVID-19 Child Nutrition Response Waiver number 56, school food, summer food service meal pattern, also summer food service program offer versus serve. We're going to review those two items. We're also going to touch a little bit on food safety and the risk levels. And then we will wrap up with information you need to know and questions and answers as we have time. So to start off, I'm going to pass this on to Sean. Maybe. She disappeared.
I am here. Thank you, Allie.
Yes, you're welcome.
I'm going to start off with school meals administrative reminders, things that need to still be happening at your school. Please complete and update your school year 2021 school meals application packet in the CNP system. We have some schools that have not submitted their application packages yet, and those need to be submitted. So please double check. And another item, you will want to look at your beginning and ending dates of the school meals program and update that information on your site applications. I bring this up because we will be talking a little bit later about waiver 56 and schools that are choosing to participate in the summer food service program in lieu of the school meals program. So my examples, you are beginning participation at the beginning of the school year in the school meals program. So meal service began, in my example, August 17th, and it ended August 30th, because that's when the school transitioned to the summer food service program. So your dates of operation that need to be entered into your school meals application would be a start date of August 17th and an end date of August 31st, or the last day that you served meals under the school meals program. For schools that have made the decision to retroactively participate in the summer food service program, they began their operation of the summer food service program at the beginning of the school year. So in my example, it would be August 17th and an end date of December 18th, because in my example, this school is going to stop serving meals when school goes on break for the Christmas vacation, their winter break. So this school would have a start date of January 5th, because that's when they are returning to school after winter break, and an end date of May 21st, 2021. So please update your dates in your site applications in your school meals application, and make sure that you submit it for approval to Nutrition Services. As we move on to the next slide, another reminder, please enter your food safety inspections received in school year 1920. These are the ones that occurred last year. This information is due October 15th. You can certainly submit it much earlier if you have not, but it does, the deadline is October 15th. Information would be under the applications in the CNP and food safety inspections. And it's program year 1920. Thank you. We'll move on. Other administrative reminders. Continue to determine students' free and reduced eligibility from direct certification and income eligibility applications. Really need to emphasize that this process continues. Notify households of their students' eligibility status in writing. And then once again, submit reimbursement claims as usual if operating in the school meals program. And I want to remind everyone, there is a 60-day submission deadline. And that 60 days is from the end of the claiming month. You have 60 days to submit a claim for reimbursement. The more timely you submit the claim for reimbursement, the more timely the payment from financial services. And this rule applies to all child nutrition programs. So if you're participating in the school meals program, if you are participating in the fresh fruit and vegetable program, if you are participating in the summer food service program, all programs have the 60-day submission deadline. Next slide. And I know many of you are still wondering and what to do with verification this year. And USDA has not provided us any additional guidance in regard to verification. So we are still waiting for that guidance to be received. We also have not received any information about participation in the after-school care snack program if you are choosing to participate in the summer food service program or participation in the special milk program. So we are still waiting to put the pieces of the puzzle together so that we can provide that information to you. As soon as we receive it, we will pass it on to you. Next slide. So moving on, want to do a quick review of the USDA COVID-19 Child Nutrition Response Waiver number 56. The release of this waiver allows schools and institutions to participate in the summer food service program in lieu of the school breakfast and lunch programs. Schools and institutions have the decision to make if they are wanting to participate in the summer food service program. Must complete the access form on the Nutrition Services website. So if your school or institution has decided to participate in the summer food service program, you must complete the access form. That is how our office knows that you are choosing to participate in this program. With participation in the summer food service program, meals are provided free of charge to students and claimed at the summer food service program rates of reimbursement. So they are claimed at a higher rate of reimbursement, and all students eat free. With this, you must credit student accounts if those students were previously charged for meals. So if you are a school that is retroactively going back to the beginning of the school year, because that is allowed, you must credit your student accounts that were previously charged. If you're starting September 1st, then you are needing to credit your student accounts for charges that occurred in August. Moving on to the next slide. Nutrition services staff must grant access to the summer food service program application package if you are a new sponsor that has never participated in the summer food service program. We also need to add sites as needed to sponsors that have operated previously. So if in the summer or during our unanticipated school closure that happened in March, you operated at one or two of your feeding sites, and now you are choosing to operate at all of your feeding sites, then those sites must be entered into your site profile for information to be entered on those sites. An email will be sent when access has been granted. So we are in the process of doing that. And if you have not received your email, please be patient. There are a large number of sponsors choosing to participate in the summer food service program. And the process of granting these access rights and adding sites does take some time. So we will be in communication with you if you have completed the access form on the Nutrition Services website. The effective date for the summer food service participation, beginning of the school year or any time after through December 31st. And this is dependent on USDA funding. So it is not a guarantee the funds will last through December 31st. If the question is in your mind, well, what happens if we want to start October 1st? That is certainly acceptable. You can start anytime from the beginning of the year through December 31st. That is a school's decision of when they are choosing to participate in this waiver for summer food service. The next step would be complete the summer food service application package. This must be completed, and Katie Parch has sent the summer food service program application guide in an email to all sponsors. The guide walks you through the process of completing both the sponsor and site applications. So please refer to that guide. Next slide. Well, on the application, the sponsor must indicate how they will be operating. If you select that you will be operating as an open restricted site, this means that you will be serving your enrolled students and only your enrolled students. This is allowed because there is a limit to your service capacity. So limitations to service capacity. And in the situation of COVID-19, where social distancing and safety are major considerations, this is certainly acceptable only to provide meals to your enrolled students. But you do need to make sure that you have indicated on the site applications that this is an open restricted site. Sponsors also have the option of operating as an open site. An open site means that you will be serving children 1 through 18 years of age. So a school must have a mechanism for providing these meals to students that aren't enrolled in their program. Certainly can serve your enrolled students, but it's also providing meals to other children. So how will the school do that? Do they have the administrative capacity to do that? Will it be a safe distribution? So things to consider when deciding if your sponsor will be choosing to operate an open site. Next slide. For sponsors that are utilizing waiver 56, you must determine eligibility for each site using the following criteria in this order. So no matter if you are choosing to be an open restricted or an open site, you must determine eligibility for each site using the following criteria. Number one, first priority. Is enrollment over 50% free and reduced as indicated on a site claim? The site claim can be any claim from the previous year. So is enrollment over 50%? Number one criteria. If the site doesn't meet that criteria, then is it located in an area eligible location? And you would use the census map that's indicated in the application guide that was sent to you by Katie to determine, there's a link that you would use to determine based on the USDA census mapper, if the address for where the site is located is in an area that has over 50% free and reduced eligibility. If the site does not meet 1 or 2, then the site can utilize the statewide area eligibility waiver. But it is a 3-step process. It's actually, if 1 isn't met, 2 isn't met, then 3 applies. If 1 is met, then you stop the process, and it is based on free and reduced eligibility. So I hope that is clear to everyone that you have to determine this for each one of your sites. The next bullet on the slide is, after you've done all of those things, you will complete program year 1920 Summer Food Service Program application, the application package. The program year for summer runs October 1st through September 30th. It is different than the school year for the school meals program, which runs July 1st through June 30th. So you will complete the 1920 Summer Food Service Program application package, and the end date will be September 30th, 2020 for program year 1920. If you are a sponsor that is choosing not to participate till October 1st, then you would not complete this application package. You would complete the package for program year 2021. For sponsors that are choosing to retroactively go back to the beginning year of the school year or start in September, you will have to complete this program application and then the application for program year 2021. If you'd move on to the next slide, Allie. We are asking that you not complete the program year 2020 application till October. The application package will be released and made available in October for sponsors to complete for the program year. So the beginning date of October 1st with an end date of December 31st, or the last day meals are served prior to winter break if the sponsor is choosing not to provide meals during winter break, which is certainly at the sponsor's discretion. Meals do not have to be offered on weekends or non-school days. They can coincide with the school week. Eventually, you will be revising your school meals application with a start date, in my example here, of January 4th, or the return to school after winter break, the first day of meal service, and in my example, that is January 4th, or when school resumes for second semester. You will want to complete this in December or early January. Next slide. Things that are important for you to know when utilizing Waiver 56, the transition to the summer food service program. You must have an accurate point of service meal count for breakfast and lunch. And that is when the child has taken the reimbursable meal or when the meal has been provided. In the situation of grab and go meals, if you're offering remote meals, grab and go meals to remote learners, that is when that meal is picked up. You cannot use a morning count. You cannot use a tray count. It has to be a count taken when that meal is provided to that child. And with this accurate point of service meal count for breakfast and lunch, do ensure that your counts are accurate for the claims for reimbursement. We will be looking at our sponsors, our new sponsors, to ensure that they have done the claim correctly. So you want to ensure that you are counting your meals correctly. You will need to complete an on-site review for each new site operating in the summer food service program. So if the site has previously operated in March, April, May, June, July, then you do not need to complete a new site review, on-site review, but only for your new sites. You will maintain these on-site reviews at your location. And where can you find the on-site reviews? They are under the summer food service program training, and they are the first bullet under the training resources. You will find the review form. That has to be completed for all new sites operating, and it should be completed within the first 4 weeks of operation. So please complete it within the first 4 weeks of the site operation. The review form is not difficult to complete. It's a series of questions, just ensuring that regulations are being followed for the site. Next slide. I wanted to include this. This was a sample notification that was developed for a school because they had asked for, what do we tell our households about the situation we are with the transition to the summer food service program, not charging for meals, and what's going to happen then in January. So this is a sample notification. You can, please develop your own, because you have to notify your households that you are participating in the summer food service program and that meals are being provided to all students free of charge. That does not include a la carte items. It's 1 meal per child, so 1 breakfast, 1 lunch if you are offering both breakfast and lunch. And then the transition back to the school meals program that will be happening in January, and that we are going back to normal meal operations under the school meals program. So this is just a sample notification. You can certainly develop your own. I'm sure many of you have already notified your households, but this has been requested, and so I thought I would include it on a slide. And I'm going to turn it over to Donna, who is going to be talking to us about the different meal options available in the summer food service program.
Hello, everyone. And I feel really lucky today because Sean got to talk a lot about all of the all of the rules and regulations and everything, and I get to talk about food. How cool is that? So I know we talked about, or Sean and Katie talked about the meal pattern options in the summer food service program last week, but we thought maybe we'd go over it again and then you would have some time to ask some questions. You know by now that to operate in the summer food service program at this time, you have two options for meal patterns. You can follow the meal pattern for the school lunch and breakfast programs, otherwise known commonly as NSLP lunch and SBP breakfast, or you can choose to follow the meal pattern for the summer food service program, the SFSP meal pattern. Now, you must indicate on your summer food service site applications which meal pattern is being utilized, and it's very important to understand that you must choose one meal pattern to use for all students. We have been asked, well, can I use the school lunch meal pattern, NSLP, for on-site learners? Because it's good to keep continuing with that, and the SFSP meal pattern for remote learners. That's not possible to do that at the same time. You have to be using the same meal pattern for all students at the same time. However, let's say that all of your students, 100% of your students are on-site learners. You can use the NSLP on-site, and then you have to actually go to 100% students learning as remote learners off-site. Then you could switch meal patterns because 100% of the students were on school lunch, and then it might be easier for you to provide meals to remote learners using the summer food service program. And again, bear in mind that you have to have 100% of your students on one meal pattern, the same meal pattern. And also, if you were to change meal patterns, that should be reflected and changed in your summer food service site applications. Okay, Allie, next one. Okay, I just want to show you where the meal pattern chart is located. Here is a link, and these slides will be posted. The webinar will be posted, so you can use these links. And basically, it's the meal pattern chart is located on the summer food service program training page, which you can see on the left-hand side. It's highlighted, and then the meal pattern chart is highlighted on the right side. So let's take a look at this chart. Next slide, please. Thank you. She's a mind reader. This chart is something you looked at a little bit last week, and you notice that the food components are listed on the left-hand side. I chopped up the meal pattern chart a little bit so I could fit all all four food components on one slide, so it's not complete. But you notice on the left-hand side, the food components are outlined in red. We have milk, and one of the things that makes this different from NSLP is that vegetables and fruits are combined into the same component. We have grains/breads, and then we have meat alternates. So those are the four food components. Now, if we go to the middle of this slide, and we look at the columns, we'll notice that in the breakfast column, there are three required components. Milk, vegetables and fruits, and grains and breads are required to be served. So you have to serve all three of those. But the meat alternate component is optional. Next to the right is lunch or supper, and we see that all of the food components listed are required. Milk, vegetables and fruits, grains and breads, and meat alternates are all required. One thing you'll notice that's very different on this meal pattern is that there are no grade groups listed. The same amounts are required for all students. Next slide, please. Let's look a little bit more closely now at breakfast. And you notice that on the left we have some notes, and then we have a green box that is surrounding the three components that are required for breakfast. And then we have the serving sizes that are listed next to that. And note that the serving sizes are different for SFSP than they are for NSLP. We have 1 cup of milk, and that's pretty standard because, you know, milk comes in a 1 cup carton and so on. But the fruit vegetable component is different. You can serve a fruit, a juice, or a vegetable, and the required amount is 1/2 cup. Then we have the grains and breads, and I think that's supposed to be an S instead of 2 there on bread. But anyway, you see a few samples of serving sizes in that category. 1 slice of bread, 1 serving or 1 roll, 1 muffin, 3/4 cup cold dry cereal, and so on. And you know, hey, if you want to eat pastas or noodles for breakfast, I'm all for that. So 1/2 cup in that type of food. And the serving sizes, once again, are the same for all ages. And I wanted to point out that juice must be 100% juice, and that is allowed. But of course, we strongly encourage you to serve whole fruits or vegetables. And the grains that are listed here must be whole grains or enriched grains. Okay, next, please. Okay, next up is lunch. And here we have the 4 required components in the green square or rectangle, and you must serve all 4 components, but there must be 5 items offered from those 4 components. And the 5 items are listed on the left: 1 milk, 2 fruit or 2 vegetable, or 1 fruit plus 1 vegetable, to equal 3/4 cup. The serving size for lunch is 3/4 cup in this component compared to 1/2 cup for breakfast. Then we have 1 grain equals 1 serving. And again, I believe these are the same serving sizes that we saw before. And in the required component of meat for lunch, we see a 2-ounce portion. So we have here listed 2 ounces lean meat poultry, an alternate protein product or cheese, 1 large egg, 1/2 cup cooked beans, and so on. So the same rules must apply. Juice must be 100% juice, but remember, we strongly encourage whole fruits or vegetables. And the full strength juice may be counted to meet not more than 1/2 of the fruit vegetable requirement. So for lunch, you must serve a fruit or vegetable along with that juice. And the grains, once again, must be whole or enriched grains. Okay, next slide. Now let's talk a little bit about combination foods, because you know, you may have foods that you're preparing from recipes, and you all have your crediting information on your recipes, I'm sure. I hope you do. And also, if it's a combination food that you have bought from your purveyor, that you have purchased and it's a processed dish, that the label should be available, the CN label, or a product formulation statement. This is the same as for the school lunch program, because it's really important to know how these items credit toward the meal pattern. The CN label states the amount of creditable meat, meat alternate, fruit, vegetable, and grain bread. So that's very, very helpful when you have a piece of pizza or maybe some of those other fantastic, wonderful things that those kids love. And so commercially prepared combination food items without a CN label or product formulation statement cannot be used, because we see down here at the bottom in red that you must plan, serve, and be able to document that all meals meet the meal pattern requirements when using either the NSLP school meals pattern or the summer food service meal pattern. It doesn't matter. You need to be able to document these things. And speaking of documentation, next slide brings us to the production records. And we know that you must keep daily breakfast and lunch production records required for the on-site meals. And then they're also required for the take-home or remote meals, whatever you want to call them. But you do have to maintain separate production records for these meals, because they may be different in their composition. And it's easier then to keep track of how many take-home remote learners you have, how many meals you are making compared to the on-site meals. So separate production records for take-home, off-site, and separate for on-site meals for both breakfast and lunch. And these production records should be labeled with the date and day each meal is intended to be consumed. I know now that I don't have any idea how many schools are doing this, but there are some schools providing meals, more than one meal at a time for the remote learners. So each production record should reflect the date and day each meal is intended to be consumed, not the day these meals are handed out or taken home. And once again, all of these meals must meet meal pattern. Okay, now the fun stuff, offer versus serve. And you know what? It's different, a little bit different in summer than it is in the school lunch program. And here are a couple of guides. There's a USDA SFSP nutrition guide that's over 100 pages long. So definitely, if you pull it up, search for offer versus serve. I think there are 2 pages in it that give a good explanation. And there's also a handout called How to Do Offer versus Serve from FNS that is also very good at explaining how this all works. Next slide, please. So let's talk a little bit about offer versus serve at breakfast in the summer program. Now remember, we have 3 components in breakfast, and you must offer at least 4 items from these components. So the component groups are, once again, fruit and vegetable and grain, otherwise sometimes called bread, bread alternate, and milk. So you need to add either one additional serving of fruit or vegetable, 1 additional serving of bread, bread alternate, or a serving of a meat alternate, which is totally acceptable to do that. Now, in this food pattern, all of the food items must be different from each other. For example, you have 2 different cereals and you think, well, hey, I have 2 different items here, but they are considered to be the same food item because they are both cereals. So we have flake cereal and we have puff cereal, but they're the same. So if a child takes those 2 items, that would count basically as 1 item because it wouldn't count as 2. Another example is apple slices and apple juice. They're from the same food item, both apples, and so they would not count. So different items must be offered, and a child must take at least 3 different food items from the 3 components. And I know we have had people talk about Pop-Tarts and the 2 packaged Pop-Tarts. And there are a lot of other items, I believe, that count credit in school lunch or school breakfast program as 2 grains. But in the summer program, they would be 1 item, such as a 2 Pop-Tart package, or maybe some of those packaged cinnamon rolls or waffles or something like that. Okay, next up. So here's an example. Sample menu for breakfast. There's a 2-ounce muffin, and the size is important here to make the point, and assorted cold cereals, which are 1 ounce, mandarin oranges, and milk. The child must choose the muffin or any of the cereal options. The child must take the muffin. It's a 2-ounce muffin, but it only counts as 1 of the 3 required meal items. Again, going back to what I said a couple of minutes ago, which I'm sure you haven't forgotten yet, so we're not going to talk about it again. But either cereal or the muffin would be good, the mandarin oranges and the milk. Okay, next up, we have lunch, offer versus serve. Now here you have 4 component groups, if you remember, but you must offer at least 5 items from the group. So however many components, either for breakfast or for lunch, you have to offer 1 extra item from those components. And so that's similar, which makes it kind of nice to remember. Okay, so we have 1 serving of meat alternate, which is 2-ounce equivalent, 2 different servings of fruit and or vegetable, 2 different food items, 1 serving of bread alternate, and 1 serving of fluid milk. And again, all the food items must be different from each other. The fruits and vegetables, for example, there must be different offerings there. And the child must take at least 3 food components, not just 3 items, but 3 food components. Okay, let's go to the next slide and see an example. We have an example for a menu of roasted chicken, yogurt, rice, broccoli, apple slices, and milk. The child must choose at a minimum 3 components. Now you have 4 components, 5 items, but it must be a minimum of 3 components. So let's say the child chooses chicken and rice and broccoli. That's a go. That's a reimbursable meal. Yogurt, rice, and broccoli. Each of those is from a different component, and they can choose more than that if they want, as long as they have a minimum of 3 components. And that's also a reimbursable meal. Number 3, chicken and yogurt and broccoli. Nope, doesn't make the cut on that one because the chicken and yogurt are both from the same component. So the child has taken 3 items, but they are from just 2 components. Okay, so that's basically the the meal pattern that we wanted to go over again. And if you have any questions, please put them in the chat box. And do you have to provide meals for remote learners? We thought we'd go over a few of the basic considerations we've talked about before, because there are some questions being asked about this. And so we want to refer back to the response waivers, the COVID response waivers from USDA. And one of these is the non-congregate feeding waiver that states that school meals may be provided to students who do not attend school in person. And actually, mealtime flexibility and parent pickup may also factor into that. But they may be provided, which means that no, it's not required, but they may be provided. And it is a decision at this time to be made by the school district. However, if even one student who is learning remotely is offered meals, then all remote learning students must be offered meals. It just makes sense that we must be fair and equitable about this. I'm looking at my notes to see, I think I've said everything on that slide. So next slide, please. Okay, so what information does the school need to proceed? I know that, it seems like a long time ago this started. We've been so busy with all of you folks wanting to take on this program, which has been exceptional. We really appreciate that. But we're still finding that schools are in different places in the whole process. So the information the school needs to proceed is to communicate your meal availability to households. Communicate, as Sean showed you, that these meals are free and this is how we're going to make them available to you. How you're going to distribute the meals, how the meals will be tracked and documented on production records. And meal availability can be communicated through the usual channels. If you use phone calls, maybe you use your POS software, your school software, school lunch software, I should say, to communicate this. And again, Sean gave you a really nice message you can use to do that on the school website and so on. So the next slide talks about meals being tracked. And I hope we have this a little bit clearer now. In the beginning, when we talked about this, it was a little bit not as clear as we should have made it. But meals, again, must be claimed on the day they're meant to be consumed. So that means that you may have to use something like a paper roster or a daily meal count sheet to keep track of meals that are being taken home for the next consumption the next day or the next day for remote learning, depending upon what your schedule is for your students. But the major thing here is, of course, that an accurate point of service meal count must be conducted. It's very important because if we do review your program, that means we'll be looking at those and comparing those numbers to the claims as we do with the school lunch program. So, whatever works best for you is something that you can use to do this. And remember that once the meals have left the point of service or have been documented as leaving the school, then you don't have to go track them down and spy on people to make sure that the students are eating the meals and they're eating them at the appropriate time. That's not your position. And so you don't have to worry about that, but you do have to have an accurate POS. Next slide, please. Okay, can someone other than a student or a student's parents pick up meals for that student? Yes, that is possible. The parent meal pickup waiver was extended and allows for a parent or guardian to sign a consent form for someone else to pick up meals for a student or students. This form must be kept on file as documentation. That's very important because this is important to maintain the program integrity. We have to be sure that meals are given to authorized individuals only, and that not every Dick and Jane are picking up meals for people or for kids or whoever, and that duplicate meals are not provided. So I'm sure you folks have things in place to make sure that doesn't happen. Okay, next up is food safety, and I am going to turn it over to Beth.
Thank you, Donna. So I'm going to talk about food safety. It's just going to be a quick little thing. Just want to remind everybody to go to launchne.com for the conditions of learning, the guidance document that is by risk level. Most of the counties in Nebraska are in the DHM green level, which is level 4 in the DHM, but there's a few that are not. And so you need to be looking at those so you know what the expectations are. And it also has this really cool new quarantine poster that tells you how the students have to quarantine or how people have to quarantine. And it's pretty cool. They did a nice job on it. Next slide, please. Okay, so we're getting a lot of questions on the fruit and veggie bars, and it is a school decision. In the green level, we still have it that the high self-serve salad bars, food bars, condiments, and water are high risk, and that the salad bars, food bars, condiment bars, and water that are served by a staff member who is masked and gloved or a plexiglass is surrounding them and they can serve it, that's low risk. Also, next slide, please. Also, anything that is like a grab and go type item, pre-portioned, pre-packaged items, you can place under a sneeze guard, plexi guard, or out on a tray on the serving line, and they can pick it up themselves as long as it is spread apart so that they are covered. But they but the kids can pick them up without having to touch another item. And that is if they are covered items. If they are not, they have to be under a plexiglass and sneeze guard, and then they can pick them up. Just want to keep those little germs off. Okay, next slide. Okay, one of the things we want you to remember, and I think I'm preaching to the crowd about this, but all staff and students must frequently wash their hands properly. You can use the 60% alcohol sanitizer in addition to hand washing. Do not use hand sanitizer as a replacement for hand washing. I think we need to remind the administration that this needs to happen, but we'll go with what we can get. And next slide. Just a quick reminder that sometime this year, you guys will be having your health inspections. They're going to try to get out to you at least once. They may come out twice, depending how COVID runs. I know that a few people have had inspections. They're out now that most people are in the level 4 green level of the DHM. And but if we go back, I don't know that they are doing them in Lincoln since they're in a higher level. And that is all I have for food safety. Oh, I guess I get to do this one. The information you need to know about next time is Serving Up Great School Meals, October the 7th at 2 p.m. And the previous Serving Up Great School Meals recorded and are available on our www.education.ne.gov/NS. Next slide, and I think it's Donna is going to talk about Farm to School.
Yes, Allie, do we have a couple of poll questions?
Oh,
Hmm.
Oh, we do. I'm sorry. Okay, do I go ahead?
yep, go ahead, Donna.
Okay, sorry. I couldn't hear if you said no or whoa or whatever it was. Sorry. Yeah, I want to talk a little bit about Farm to School because Sarah couldn't be with us today. And so she roped me into doing this for her, which I don't mind at all because this is a really great event and working with Sarah and Farm to School has been it's a wonderful experience. There is a link in your chat box for the Mountain Plains Crunch. And as you know, in 2019, last year, you probably heard we won the Mountain Plains Crunch Off against 8 other states. So you're supposed to help Nebraska defend the championship for our 2020 Mountain Plains Crunch Off. Crunch into a local apple or other crunchable local produce on October 22nd or any day during the month that works for you. October is also Farm to School month, and we want to hear the crunch of local produce all throughout the state. Nothing but crunching going on here. So be sure to register so your crunches are counted. The registration link can be found in the chat box also, or you'll also find it on our Nutrition Services Farm to School web pages, where you can also explore other resources and some tools. You have some marketing tools there for the Crunch Off. So you'll also receive a Mountain Plains Crunch Off toolkit once you register. So start making your plans to crunch in October and give yourself, staff, and students a great reason to celebrate during this time. And next slide, please. We also want to bring your attention to and remind you about Nebraska Thursdays. There's still time to register and participate in great giveaways happening in October. Nebraska Thursdays supports schools and adding local to the plate on Thursdays during the school year. So we have currently more than 45 districts with almost 300 sites and at least 94,000 Nebraska students registered to participate this year. Every site that participates will receive a free and colorful vinyl banner, just like the one shown there in the picture underneath the tower. And to promote the program, and 2 districts will win 1 full tower garden package. And that's what you see above the banner. And I'm thinking about getting one of those for home. That would be great, wouldn't it? Have lettuce all year long. We've extended the deadline to October 15th to register. So please do so to participate in these giveaways. And next slide, please. Okay, so for new people, if you're registering for the first time, there's a link on the NDE Farm to School website. You also find it in the chat box. And once registered or re-registered, be sure to order your free promotional banners. It takes about 2 minutes and that's it. And the link to orders in the chat box. The order form can be used only if you are registered for Nebraska Thursday. So be sure to complete the form. And once registered and entering the portal, you can explore the recipes. Allie has been working on some really great new recipes to put in the recipe portal. And there's a bunch of other free promotional items like posters and laminated menus, aprons for the staff, buttons, salad bar clings, and wearable stickers for students. And I have to admit, I love those stickers too. I like to wear them too. Temporary tattoos, not quite so much, and more. And in order to receive the promo items, there's a 15-minute webinar that you can watch, brought to you by, oh, this is Sarah writing this, the lovely Donna and Sarah. You'll also automatically receive a 0.25 CEU for your professional standards. So if you have any questions about Crunch Off or participating in Nebraska Thursdays, contact Sarah, or you can contact me, but Sarah's address is in the chat box. There we go. Okay, so I think, Allie, I'm turning it over to you for chat room.
Thank you, Donna. Thank you, Sean and Beth, also for all that good information. We wanted to give you guys an opportunity, take 10 minutes. I'm going to put you guys into chat rooms. We have a large group today, so there's going to be 8 to 10 people in your chat room, but the idea was just to ask each other questions, share ideas or solutions you've had so far this year with your programs, and just a moment to connect with each other before we come back and answer questions for everyone from the chat box. So if you give me one moment, I will get everyone going here. And see you in 10 minutes. Okay, welcome back, everyone. Wait just a few seconds here to make sure everybody gets back to the main page. We're going to move on to the question and answers portion. I'm going to pull up the chat box here. Give me 1 second. There's a lot of people that are on here. Sorry. So it's taking me a minute to get through all the names. I'm sorry. I apologize for the wait. Give me 1 second. Okay, I found the first question in the chat box. Sean, are you ready? Are you able to speak? Or Beth, Donna, I see you both on here. You're on here too. And Michelle, make sure everyone is back. Ready to go? Is that Sean attempting to talk?
I think so.
Okay. I'll just go ahead and read the first question. The first question I see in the chat box, and someone correct me if I missed one. The first one I see is, do we have to wait to be approved for the SFSP before we submit a claim?
Hey, Allie. Yeah, the answer to that one is yes. The application packet and each site application has to be approved before the system will let you submit a claim for reimbursement. And
Ally,
Yes.
there was one before that. I thought we were to use 9/30/20, September 30th, 2020 as an end date, and would have to fill out another application for October.
yeah, that's also correct. In this program year 1920 for the SFSP, the end date on that would be 9/30/2020. And then meals served through the SFSP for October, November, and December would all be entered in the program year 2021 application in CNP. And in order to avoid confusion among schools that are needing to complete and submit the current program year, which is 1920 for their September and also possibly August meals, we're trying to separate those and keep the program year 2021 application closed for now. If we can get all of the 1920 program year applications in there and work on approving those, then it's going to be beneficial to you for the 2021 program year application, because some of that approved information is going to roll over from the 1920 year into the 2021 year. So ultimately it's going to save you some time, but I wouldn't expect that the 2021 program year application is going to open until probably mid-October, to give all of the schools and all of the NDE staff a little bit of time to help with getting applications submitted and approved before we open up the next year's application.
Thank you, Katie. Okay, the next one, if we are serving restricted open now and are no longer and no longer use one of our spring feeding sites that was a van route, do we need to amend our site application?
That's a good question. And the current information that's probably reflected in those feeding sites or mobile feeding routes that you were using last spring have end dates that accurately reflect when that meal service concluded. And we would just have you leave those sites alone. You don't need to make any changes or updates to them. You will still just update the current information for the sites you will be using during the school year, and the system will allow you to save that and submit the application packet for approval that way.
Okay, the next one. For October, do we open a new year for SFP?
Yes.
Yeah, I think we answered that. Yes,
Yep.
that'll be a new program year. We just won't open it until
Yep.
middle of October.
Okay, here's a question. If you did not resume SFSP until 9/14/20, does the NSLP need to be dated from the beginning of the school year until 9/13/2020 and then reactivated for the end of December, January?
Correct.
Yeah,
There's no
that is
application.
correct.
Katie, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Great. The program operated from the beginning of the school year till September 13th. And so those are the current dates of operation. And so that would be entered in. And then the school is not resuming till January because you are participating in the summer food service program as of September 14th. So the summer food service application would be September 14th through September 30th, with the new application for program year 2021 completed, and then a revision of the school meals program starting with your start date in January through the end of the program year. Next question.
I believe the next question is, I'm trying to check if we answered them later in the chat, so I apologize if I'm reading one and there was an answer to it. Referencing the new area eligibility waiver for CACFP at risk after school snack program. Does NDE have a process to apply for this since the NSLP after school snack program question is unanswered?
Sean, you can chime in here, correct me if you think what I say is incorrect. We know that the national office is still formulating their answer on whether schools can utilize the NSLP for their after school snack option. And we encourage you to just hold off just a little bit longer so that we can receive that answer and give guidance according to what the USDA says, hoping that it might possibly mean we can avoid having to complete an application for a different program, in this case, the CACFP. You know, again, ideally being able to keep that snack in the NSLP because you've already got your application in that system. And so if we can avoid having to do another one, I think we'd like to. So we're holding off on a process there because we don't have the final answer.
I totally agree with what you said. You know, the goal is not to have another application, but that is another program, the Child and Adult Care Food Program.
Okay, the next question is talking about meal pattern. If we serve both apple and orange juice at breakfast, would apple slices or oranges be allowed?
Well, they're two different words, yes.
There's such a wide variety of different fruit choices out there. I can see where maybe offering a choice between two different juices, but there's such a wide variety of different fruits available that you are repeating the same fruit by offering apple juice and apples and orange juice and oranges. That it may be simpler to maybe offer an apple and pear slices just for the variety.
Okay. The next one, we have 2 children who are under COVID quarantine due to a sibling testing positive. We are providing packets, not remote learning. Are they still eligible to receive meals?
They're receiving instruction, correct? I think that's the question. They are receiving instruction and they are considered in school. And under the summer food service program, they are eligible to receive meals because of the eligibility of the site open. But if you are offering meals to those students, then you have to offer meals to all of your remote learners.
Okay. Here's a question on the SFSP permanent agreement. Who is our authorized rep? Is this our principal or our food is
Your
brought
authorized
in?
representative is the person ultimately responsible for the rules and regulations of the program. Typically in the school meal situation, that person would be a superintendent or a principal, but it is dependent upon who the school has decided to be that authorized representative. But that individual has the responsibility of ensuring that the program rules and regulations are adhered to.
Okay. Sorry, I'm scrolling down, Sean. Give me a moment.
Oh, sure, no problem. Maybe Beth or Donna, can you jump in and maybe help Allie? I can open up my chat too. Look where we're at. Maybe we can start at the bottom. On the summer food service site application under miscellaneous, can you explain what you are wanting for question number 80, activities at site? And remember, the summer food service application is designed for normal summer food service operation. I think it's acceptable, and Katie, please chime in. I've seen schools put no organized activities because school is in session. I've also seen that they have marked other and indicated that information, school is in session. Is there a preference, Katie?
I agree, yeah.
So Katie's saying either is acceptable. And as I look on up, I know there's questions about meal pattern. Thank you, Beth, for putting where to find that on the website, the summer food service meal pattern on the website. Rowan asked, any ideas when grant funds will be added to the CMP for the fresh fruit and vegetable program? Rowan, I know Sarah's working on that. Right now, she is in the process of adding those grant funds. So that is underway. Next question, trying to register for Nebraska Thursdays, and it says 2019-20 school year. Is it okay to move forward with registering? As far as I know, yes. If there's not a different link, please register. Donna, do you know anything about that?
No, that's the first I've heard of it, but I'm looking at it now and I will pass that along to Sarah. And Cindy, I'll get back to you about that.
Please register. I think if you have the ability to register under the 1920, please do so. If we have a question on how to complete something, who can we call? And Elaine, if this is in regard to your summer food service program application, remember that we will be reaching out to the sponsors that have expressed interest in applying for the summer food service or participating. And remember, you can participate in the summer food service program without a submitted or approved application. You can participate. And I know earlier on in the chat, I had seen someone asked about, we can't submit a claim without an approved application, and that is true. You cannot submit a claim without an approved application, but you certainly can participate without a submitted or approved application. And that is not normally the case, but under this situation, with waiver 56, USDA has allowed that flexibility. Now, who to call if you have questions in regard to completing something, you can reach out to any of us on the nutrition services team. We're more than willing to help you. Just keep in mind that we are in the process of trying to get everyone access to the summer food service application. So, you know, timeliness of our response, we certainly want to get back with you as soon as possible, but please understand there may be a little bit of a delay.
I also want to mention that Sarah, I messaged her. She says, yes, go ahead with the registering, even though it says 1920.
Now, Allie, for some reason, I can't see any more questions in my chat box.
Okay, there was one question. I don't think was answered. On the budget portion, do we use costs for August through September for 1920 and then October through December?
The budget will, oh, Katie, are you there?
I'm here. Go ahead.
The budget prompts you, it's for the number of, it figures your rate of reimbursement based on the number of operating days that are indicated in the calendar for, let's say in this example, September and August. And it determines that reimbursement rate. So it takes your estimated average participation times number of operating days times the rate of reimbursement for both operating and then a separate area for administrative. And so when you are completing the budget information, you are essentially trying to stay within that budget of your reimbursement. Okay, so the form is divided into really 4 sections where it has operating reimbursement, administrative reimbursement, operating costs, and administrative costs. The cost should be close to what the reimbursement is.
And Sean, I believe we've asked all the questions in the chat box. Unless I've missed something, someone please speak up. But if anyone has a question that they haven't typed in that they would like to ask, you can surely just unmute yourself and ask that now too.
Well, I see that Jackie has just asked, where would I find a sample letter to send to our household? And Jackie, I gave that just short example, that sample notification in the presentation. Every school, because of their start date, we have not developed a template for schools to use because it is dependent when your school is starting, okay? And I think, does anyone have a template that they would like to share with Becky?
That letter would probably need to include just a few bits of important information, like when your school will either begin participating in the SFSP to provide the free meals, or the date of the retroactive implementation of it, so you can let parents know at what date the meal charges on their students' accounts would be credited. Make sure to note in your communication, though, that this is the charges for meals and not for a la carte items like extra milks or second entrees. And then I think other schools have indicated in this communication the expected end date of this program, which is December 31st, 2020, or when the funds allocated for this option are all gone. Whichever of those is first would be the end date. So make that clear to them, and then also share that you'll communicate with families as quickly as you can once you're aware if the end date is going to be sooner than the 31st of December, and let them know that they will transition back to paying for meals through the school lunch program based on their eligibility status. There might be other big pieces there, but I think those are the main factors or pieces of information that schools have shared in their communication. But you asked a great question, Sean. If someone has one developed that they'd be willing to share, I'm sure that would be appreciated.
You know what, you might also, you know, when I had a school ask me also, and I just Googled a school district, and I just sent a sample to another school that they could use as a prototype.
Great idea, yeah.
What else do you have for us? What other questions are you wondering about? I noticed that Michelle had answered a question in the chat, and that was in regard to what do we put for our pre-operational site visit for our new sites. And the pre-operational visit just needs to happen before the site starts. So you can put in a date prior to the site actually serving meals. So if the program is starting October 1st, then the pre-operational visit date could be September 30th. It could be September 29th. The pre-operational visit just ensures that the site is able to operate. You all know your sites are able to operate. So just a date prior to the start of the program.
I have a question about the geographic area percentage, and I'm sorry if you've already answered. I joined this late. Our school has 2 different counties. We have 3 to 4 different towns. So when I look it up, I don't feel like I'm getting accurate information. Didn't know how I should answer that.
So you're referring to what you have to enter into the site claim?
Yes, yes.
Talking about like Hispanic and non-Hispanic, and then the racial categories?
Yes. The geographic, I can do our participation, so I know what our school is, but the general, the U.S. Census Quick Facts.
Yep. I think in the Quick Facts page, you could search, you said 4 counties?
2 counties, we have 3 to 4 different towns. It's
Because of
Ponca
the
Public Schools.
Yeah, you're going to have to search at county level. I don't think the towns are going to be available. The data for the smaller towns is going to be available in the Quick Facts data. So
Okay.
search by the 2 counties. I think you can get 2 columns to populate based on the 2 counties you're searching. You could look at the racial ethnic makeups of those 2 counties. I'm guessing they're quite similar. So
Okay.
I don't think there's going to be any significant differences. Therefore, you could just choose one of them when reporting the geographic area information for the racial and ethnic categories in the site
Okay.
application. Yep.
All
Good
right,
question.
thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions that you'd like to enter into the chat or unmute and ask? gonna check the chat one more time.
Sean,
Yes,
was the question answered? They're asking where they identify what meal pattern they're going to use in the site application, where that's at.
it is located in the section where you indicate, it's right above the calendar section for both breakfast and lunch. You have to indicate what meal pattern will be used, and it's a drop-down box.
It's
And
41 for breakfast, Sean. I can't recall what it is for lunch.
I couldn't remember the number on that, Katie. That's pretty remarkable. But it is a drop down. And if you are continuing to utilize your school meals pattern, I believe it's like, it comes up as like NSLP food based. And so that's what you would indicate.
Kathy, if you're listening, I can return your application if you need to make a change to it.
Any other questions for us?
Hey, Sean,
Yeah.
Jackie White asked about a sample letter to let households know about the free meals for all students. I don't know if schools are sending out letters or if they're doing, I've heard like social media. So ideas on how to inform your families about the free meals.
I believe that's even a question in, it is a question in the site application. And what most sponsors are answering that is that social media, school messenger, because I'm sure most of you communicate almost daily with your household, email, anything that you provide that communication through.
Okay, that's question 74 on outreach.
Thank you. These girls know their numbers on their applications. Beth responded, question number 42 is the menu planning option, and that's how it's worded. Question number 42 on your site applications, and you need to indicate that on each site application, what your menu planning option is. Any other questions? We'll hang out for just a few more minutes, but if you'd like to leave the meeting, feel free. I believe we've addressed everybody's questions. Oh, we do have a question. Where did you say a sample letter was put? We don't have a sample letter. We talked about what the key elements are in the letter. And Allie, if you want to go back to that sample notification that's in the PowerPoint, we can kind of look at that a little bit more. And maybe that will be helpful. And this is a sample. This is not what you should use. You know, this, make it your own, but you need to let them know why this is happening. And Allie, you're right there. You're on it. You were on it. And USDA has provided flexibilities for schools to participate in the summer food service program and provide meals to all students free of charge through December 31st, 2020, or until funds run out. And I think it's important to make sure you put until funds run out, because there is no guarantee this is going to last through December 31st. And this is where you would also indicate when you started providing this service. Okay, what is your start date for doing this? You know, as I said earlier in the presentation, many schools are starting many schools started Monday of this week. I know there are many schools that are starting as of October 1st. And then we have those schools that started, that made the decision to go retroactively back to the beginning of the school year. This is a school decision to be made. The one thing with going retroactive backwards is student accounts need to be refunded and households need to know of that refund. And it's not necessarily you're refunding money, you're crediting accounts. You are crediting the student's account. And then the memo goes on to say, or this little sample notification, there will be no charge to your student's account to receive a breakfast or lunch meal except for an extra milk or other a la carte food items. Important for households to know that this does not include all of those extras kids want. You can certainly charge for them, but the program only reimburses for one breakfast, one lunch per child. Based on current guidance, and then you would insert your school name, will begin participation in the school meals program, because once again, back after winter break, after kids return, as far as we know, as of today, it's back to normal operations with participating in the school meals program. And then you may want to remind your families that meals, and I can see there's a typo, meals will be charged at, and then list your meal prices so families are aware of what your meal prices moving forward in January will be.
John, I think there's another question. Question number 26, how should we answer? This is our first time with SFSP. Question 26 on the sponsor application.
Okay, if somebody could tell me what question 26 is on the sponsor application.
Yeah, Sean, it is. Does your agency provide year-round public service to the communities?
The answer is, we have determined that the answer is yes, that you are a school providing a service in the community. So the answer is yes. This would be a great opportunity for us just to complete everyone's applications if we had the time to do it. You could all log in and we could just do it all together. But unfortunately, that's probably not feasible because it does take your input and your knowledge of your school to input information. But we certainly appreciate your time and attention today. Thank you all so much for your efforts and flexibility in providing meals to students during this craziness of COVID. Once again, we'll hang out for just a minute or two and then say goodbye. Any other questions that anyone would like to ask? Thank you.